everyone. My name is Monique Bainatan. I'm on the brigade team at Code for America, and I'm here with Christopher Whitaker. We're going to do a recap of National Day and share some survey results that we have. The format's a little bit different. We know everyone's schedule's really hectic right now, so we've decided to record this and post it online. And it'll be posted on the forum, so there'll be plenty of space for you to ask questions and to continue the dialogue if you choose to do so. But we wanted to make sure that we were sharing this information back with you, which is why we're doing this and we're recording this, and we're excited to get it up online and to share it with you. So first things first, I'm just going to share my screen. You see my screen, Christopher?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Cool. So earlier this month, we had National Day of Civic Hacking, which is really exciting. We were super excited to see this event happen again this year. We thought that it was a huge success, and it was super, super exciting to see all the work that you are all doing in your cities. And we're excited to share all of this information back with you and let you know what other people were working on, and to just show you some aggregated numbers. And then we'll also talk about ways that we can improve for next year. So this is our agenda. This is what we're going to talk about today. Christopher and I will sort of like switch back between each other and cover these points, but we're going to be talking about participation. We'll just do a quick overview of some of the outcomes that we had identified. We'll also do a quick recap of the challenges that we had this year, as well as who worked on what. And then we'll go into press and social media, which was very exciting this year. We had a lot of attention from the White House, which we're super excited to keep reminding people of and to keep bragging about. And then we'll do a This Week in Civic Tech National Day of Civic Hacking Edition. And then at the end, we'll go into some of the things that you had shared with us for different ways that we could improve the planning process for next year. And then at the end, we'll talk about some next steps. So you all know this, but we host 3 main events in 1 year. The first one's in March, the second one's in June, and then we have our annual summit, which is in November. But National Day of Civic Hacking is really like the big event that we host every year. And it's also, the other thing that's important to note is that it's open to not just brigades. Anyone who wants to host a National Day of Civic Hacking event can do so. So that's been really great. It's also, having these events is also just a really great way for us to measure what our collective impact is, because we're all working on something at the same time, and it's just been really motivating to be doing something at the same time as other people in other cities. So participation, just to give you an idea, we had 65 events in 53 cities, which was really exciting. This is just straight from our site. We had a centralized site that just pointed to all the different Eventbrite and or meetup pages that you all had for your local events. And this is just these are just some comparison numbers to last year. We had 93 events last year, and this year we had 65. But I mean, participation, it's a slightly lower, but it's still pretty great. And I think it's amazing that those 3,700 people had a place to go to and a place to be that weekend, which is really fantastic.
So part of the reason why I think we had less participation this year in terms of number of events is Code for America stopped giving brigade stipends. And so smaller, and so it was a little bit more of a challenge to host an event this year. And so I think that's why we had a drop of participation. That said, the groups that did hold events had a much bigger turnout than in previous years. We had several events, including Houston, Austin, Miami, that had well over 100 people attending. So while we did have less number of events, those events seemed to be bigger.
Yeah, good job, guys. Cool. And then some other facts that we wanted to show this year. We had 18 challenges. By challenges, we mean activities that you could give to your members the day of to work on. And then super exciting for these 4 groups, NOLA, Cedar Falls, Gainesville, and Tahoe, they decided to use National Day of Civic Hacking as a kickoff event for their brigade. So we're super stoked to have them join the network. we're really proud of them for pulling this off in kind of a short amount of time, and they were really pleased with the results, and they feel really excited about moving forward. On top of those 4 cities, we also had 4 other cities that reached out to us, after hearing about National Day, and hearing about the Brigade program and what it was all about, and interest from them in wanting to join us and form a brigade in their city. So like I mentioned before, National Day of Civic Hacking is open to the public, so anyone can choose to host an event. And this is just to give you an idea. I mean, most of the events were hosted by brigades, but there was still like 31% of the events were hosted by people who don't host a hack night every week under the brigade program. And then similarly, it was the first time for some people, but for the majority, most of the people who are organizing an event have done this before. And then, like Christopher mentioned, although we had less events this year, we did have 4 events that were really significantly larger. Most of the events had between 0 to 50 people, but then you'll see at the end here, we had Nashville, New York City, Houston, and Austin that had really, really, really big events with like over 150 people, which is really, really exciting. Okay, so while we were putting together all of these resources for National Day and trying to help you plan for the event, there were some goals that we had identified and that we had shared with you throughout the planning process. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but one of the thing that's really most important is to be able to use this weekend as an opportunity to highlight the collective impact of the network. And that's because there's just so many of us dispersed in so many different cities. That sometimes it's hard for us to track like what everyone is doing, and National Day of Civic Hacking is a really great chance for us to be working on something at the same time, and for us to sort of aggregate those numbers and get a better sense of like what our impact is, which is great. And then the other thing that we really wanted to highlight was showing off the work that you were doing, especially if you were launching something during National Day. The other thing that we had identified as a goal that I will be sure to talk about later in detail when we talk about the challenges is that we had released some specific challenges that were related to our focus areas here, and the purpose of it was that we really wanted to be able to showcase the state of digital government in the US, and I'll talk about that more in detail later. Some of the goals that we had identified for you all, and of course you had the freedom to identify things that were most important to your cities and to your brigade and to your membership. But some of the things that we had talked about together was that if you had created a prototype at Codacross, National Day was a really great chance for you to push that further into alpha or beta. Hawaii did that, and they were really excited about it. We also thought that it was just a really great day or weekend for you to educate your community on the importance of civic hacking. And with that, hopefully you'd be able to increase your brigade attendance, which a lot of people had identified as being important to them. And then, of course, this is just the nature of the brigade program, but finding creative solutions to local issues in your community, having the space to be able to do that in a constructive and productive manner is the most important thing. And then, of course, anything else that your brigade had identified as being important. So we asked you all to sort of identify outcomes, now that you've reflected on the event. And these were the 3 things that really, really stood out in all of your responses. So diverse audiences, people talked a lot about, finally being able to attract a really diverse group of people and having the right people come into that room and having the right people sitting at a table talking about a specific issue. And a lot of you had talked about, how difficult it was to get to this point, but how excited you all are that you've finally gotten there and you've sort of finally entered into like a new space of civic hacking, which is really exciting. And then the depths of your projects. A lot of you talked about, being able to be successful in framing projects in a manner that will set them up for success even beyond the weekend. So having a project that a group is really excited about continuing to work on even after National Day, and having them come back to more and more hack nights after the June 4th weekend, which is really exciting. And then finally, sensing some momentum that people hadn't felt in a while, which is great. And we hear this every year. And then this is just as an example of how great the projects were. In Austin, one of the teams got a full sponsorship gift to support their projects to completion, and it's specifically so that residents in Texas can remove their criminal record, which is really exciting. And then the last one, and Christopher can talk about this a little bit more, but the high level of engagement from local government. So people just being really impressed by, city staff attending, and then being super excited and super engaged and super motivated to collaborate with other people, and to collaborate with people from different backgrounds than them, and to learn from them, and to really work together in try and address some of the issues that they've been facing. Oh wait, Christopher, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Compared to last year, we had a lot more government involvement on both the national level and by city halls. In looking back to last year, and certainly the year before, I don't think we had as many mayors speaking at events or mayoral staff showing up to events. Particularly for the cities that did promise zone challenges, we saw a lot of mayoral staff there. And we certainly had a lot more participation from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. We had Megan Smith do a video for National Day. We had the White House tweeting about the event. We had White House staff bouncing around to different events, including U.S. Chief Data Scientist DJ Patel, who went to 3 events over the course of 2 days all across the country, which is probably the most epic civic tech road trip that has existed to date. And so I think that speaks to the both the maturity of the communities and really the fact that the brigades are operating at a really high level if we can attract that kind of attention.
Totally. Yeah, DJ Patel's tour was really impressive. So this is just LA talking about that diversity point that we had mentioned before. So it's definitely worth noting that this year's event attracted people with a really diverse set of backgrounds. Our reach expanded beyond strictly technical people, and I think we did a great job of inspiring attendees with ways to get involved that don't require technical experience. I like to think of it as an important next step in expanding the civic hacking community. And I think that's really great. And I think a lot of people are thinking about this. I know a lot of people put a lot of work into planning their event to make sure that people who usually wouldn't attend Hack Night were attending National Day of Civic Hacking. So it's something that you were all thinking about, and I think a lot of you were really, really successful in it and are really proud of the results. So that's really fantastic. Okay, we had 18 challenges this year. Activities. 5 of them were from our focus areas here at Code for America. 11 of them were from federal agencies, and 2 were from the state of California. And yeah, I mean, this is just, we had worked really closely with the focus area teams here at Code for America to sort of curate these. So we had 3 activities, the census, the digital service census, and then citizen onboarding or teardowns. And the last one, it says UX adventure, but it was a journey map exercise. And they were specifically, you could choose one of these 5 application processes that you had to go through to be able to do those activities. Food stamps, affordable housing, applying for a business license, applying for victim compensation, or applying for your criminal record. And we had never done this before, so we were really excited to just sort of put it out there and see what would happen. But we also wanted to couple it with other challenges that were given to us, and we wanted to make sure that you all had a pretty diverse menu of plans that your members could choose from, especially if it was their first time attending and they maybe wanted like a bite-sized activity to do during the day of, and they didn't want to necessarily commit to a project from start to finish. These were just a really great way for them to get involved for the day of or the weekend, and have like a really diverse menu of activities to choose from. So these were all the other ones that we had. I won't go into them in detail, but they're here. They're also still on the site. And then we recognized that you also had a lot of local challenges or local projects that you had set out to sort of complete during National Day. And that's really great. And we'll talk a little bit about those later in this week in Civic Tech National Day of Civic Hacking Edition. But I just sort of wanted to give you a sense of what people worked on based off of our challenges that we had released. So the most popular one was the digital service census, followed by the opportunity project and our citizen onboarding um, activity.
And before we move on, I definitely wanted to say that the challenges that seem to have a more local hook to them seem to get more participation. I think that's definitely why the Opportunity Project and the service census got more participation than some of the other projects. And thinking about things for next year, I think we're going to try to find ways to present more localized challenges. We're still thinking about next year, and if you haven't filled out the survey, please do so, because that'll help us figure out how we plan for next year. We definitely want to start planning a lot earlier than we did this year, just so that we get the challenges a little bit more correct.
Yeah, and really it's really important for us to be able to give you enough time to plan for the event. We know that National Day is not an easy thing to do, and so we definitely want to be very mindful of giving you enough time to make sure that you're able to have everything in place before the day of, and you're not scrambling last minute. Cool. So present social media. I think, Christopher, do you want to?
Sure. So National Day of Civic Hacking is by far the brigade's most visible action in terms of getting media, not only traditional media, but social media as well. A lot of you got local coverage for your event, which is really awesome. I think this is an uptick in terms of local coverage. We didn't have as much national coverage in terms of media as we did before, but I don't think that's as big a deal, because brigades are ultimately local institutions, and getting you local press is a win for us. In terms of social media, that was we always trend during National Day of Hacking, but this year it seemed to be a lot bigger. And I think a large part of that was having the fact that brigades know what they're doing in terms of their social media. It's something that I think we've kind of built our audience around, and tweet during their hack nights, and have just knowing what they're doing. We also had the White House not only post a video about Hack for Change, but we also had the White House actually tweet out the hashtag twice, which got us a lot more views. I know it says our reach was 22 million people. And I think a lot of that is because we had the White House tweet us out. If you go to the next slide, we'll sort of see the impression that June 3rd is when we did the Twitter chat, and then over the weekend we just had a lot of activity. The Twitter chat reached, we had 424 people on that Twitter chat in various capacities. According to Twitter, we reached 2.6 million people, which is a lot of people. At some point, I'd like to dig in a little further to see like how accurate those numbers are, because that seems really, really high, which is awesome. And at some point in planning for next year, certainly we'd like to talk about if we want to have more Twitter chats or more social media things, such as Facebook Live. If people find those useful, we definitely would like to do them. If people don't find them as useful, we definitely want to take that into account. It is something we're thinking about for next year, so definitely let us know if you like Twitter chats, or if you think they're not as useful. We'd definitely like to hear feedback on that. So Twitter, some of the highlights. The most important office in a democracy, the office of the citizen. Thanks to all volunteering to Hack for Change this weekend. I think it speaks to the sort of the high level we're operating at when we get that kind of endorsement from that high level. So I certainly think that we've made a big impact, and that we've certainly hit the mainstream at this point. Some other cool tweets we saw. This was code for Orlando's journey map, which was sort of awesome to see. That's this huge. That's just awesome.
So
We also
cool.
yeah, we also had event in New Orleans, done both by a new brigade in in New Orleans, as well as the city of New Orleans. So we were very excited to see that. DJ Patel tweets often and tweeted his journey, which was fun to see. So he kind of made sure he tweeted it at every event he went to. Sacramento certainly had a lot of tweets, especially because you got the mayor of Sacramento there, which was awesome. And then at Reading, we even had someone do a 3D print of the Hack for Change logo, which was really neat to see. And then, of course, we mentioned this before, but the White House video with Megan Smith and Cecilia Munez, which was really awesome to have that kind of coverage. So yeah, so we were big on social media. We would love to get feedback in terms of how useful you think that component is to the event, and how sort of we translate social media support to actual real world actions for your own local brigade. So definitely let us know, because we're thinking about doing sort of more social media stuff, and would definitely like feedback if y'all find that useful.
Cool. Great. So we wanted to do this week in Civic Tech, National Day of Civic Hacking Edition. So I mean, there was a lot. Christopher, do you want to go over some of your favorites?
Sure, I can go over some of these. There's a lot of stuff. If you go, we're going to post a blog post later on. I'm still working on it, because there were a lot of things that happened over the weekend, and we're still synthesizing all. But I wanted to point out a few things. City of the LA Brigade did an entire event focused on the promise zones. The promise zones are a White House or an Obama administration initiative, and the fact that the LA was able to pull off a big event with these partners, with primarily the partners in City Hall, we were really happy to see. Beta NYC actually was paid by the Parks Department to organize a data jam, working with tree census data. And were able to do some really cool things. They were able to offer daycare so that you could offer more participation at the event, which I think is really exciting, and something that I definitely think that we should think more about. So that's definitely a huge win for Beta NYC. And really, like, I could spend like the entire time going over all the work that happened, but well, I promised that I'll kind of wrap up the full on report. We're going to give that report to the White House as part of our planning for next year. And we're definitely excited about just all the sheer amount of work that everyone did.
Cool. Okay, so as always, there's always room for improvement. Some of the things we wanted to talk about, and some of the things that we had put in the survey, just to sort of get a temperature check on, was our marketing resources. So we had a lot this year. We had a sticker design. We sent out swag packages. There were wayfinding signs, event postcards, this awesome "Should I go to a civic hackathon" flowchart. We sort of cleaned up the logo a little bit and made sure you had, all the like InDesign and Illustrator file so that you could do whatever you wanted to do with all of this, just to make it as easy as possible for you to plan for your event. And helpful to most people, not helpful to some people. And these were some suggestions for improvements. So press release template. So we see this come up every time. We had a press release webinar with our marketing team. Sorry, yeah, we had a press, not a press release. We had a press webinar with our marketing team. And so people sort of came to that and asked questions. And yeah, it's something that we weren't able to provide this year, but it's definitely something that we're going to have to put together for next year because it's something that comes up again and again. And then the other thing was Twitter and Facebook post templates as well. I think, we often don't realize how much time these sorts of things take, especially if you're doing so many other things. And these are definitely things that we can provide for you. So we definitely look forward to being able to provide you with some of these examples for next year. And then planning in advance. So images and national day descriptions 8 weeks before the event. Yes, we totally hear you. Codacross is kind of really close to National Day, and so we're always struggling to wrap up one before we start the other, and we know that you're on that same timeline as well. And so, it's something that we really need to work on in terms of making sure that, we have the information out to you sooner rather than later. And then I thought the last point was kind of interesting. A couple of people suggested like a video that everyone watches at the beginning of the day that introduces National Day, just to sort of get everyone in the same sort of mindset and to get everyone on the same page. So that's something for us to think about.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So we're definitely need to, and admittedly, we need to start planning this earlier than before. We started planning this out in January, reaching out to different partners. For next year, I think we're going to start planning now in terms of what we do next year. We are going to try to meet with our partners, Second Muse and the federal agencies later this month or later in late July to sort of roll out some agendas and some objectives for next year. We definitely want to hear your suggestions and your thoughts on what you want to get out of National Day next year. We're thinking about a couple of different things. We might try to focus more on local challenges since that seems to get more traction, and it might be a little easier to sort of build something that works out. We're also thinking about how to do more long-term engagements. So my hope is that we have at least a very rough draft of how next year is going to go in time for Summit, so that we can sort of plan, and so we can give you plenty of time to think about those things and not have such a condensed timeline for trying to get things together.
Cool. And so we also had planning resources. One of the things that came out of the feedback after Codacross was that people just really wanted to learn from other brigades, which is totally understandable, and we totally want to support that. And so we made sure that this year for National Day, all the webinars that we had were led by brigade leaders, and they were sharing resources that they had, and they talked about the challenges and the successes that they've seen within their own brigade in using those resources that they had. So the first planning webinar, we had Jesse and Akezia lead that, and that webinar focused on fundraising and sponsorship packages. So they, they talked about the process that they had gone through to get fundraising, to reach out for sponsorships, and they both had shared some really great materials there, including some super awesome templates. If you haven't seen it already, you should definitely check it out. And then the second planning webinar we had was led by Matteo and Tabitha. They talked about different things, but Matteo shared Open Austin's Civic Tech Project Planning Canvas, which is a really great tool that helps you frame projects in a way that is informed by the people who are affected by that issue, as well as provides you a really great framework to sort of list out, who the constituents are, what the different pieces that you need to be able to finish this project in a successful manner. And it's been really great in like helping people really like focus in and frame projects in a productive manner. Um, so he shared that, and it was awesome. And Tabitha talked about how Atlanta was really successful in bringing a diverse group of community partners into the room, which like tiered up perfectly with what people were talking about in terms of wanting to diversify their brigade membership, especially during that weekend. So it was really, really great to hear them share these resources and hear them share this information. We also had a webinar that was led by the focus area leads. So the focus area leads talked about their work, and they sort of put those challenges out there and left themselves available for questions if people, wanted to follow up and talk further, discuss further the challenges that we had laid out for them. We also had a webinar that was led by the White House, specifically on the Data at Work challenge, which was really, really fantastic.
So, and I do want to,
yeah, go for it.
And I do want to say that both Jesse and Akesia and Mateo, and really anytime we bring brigade captains to run a webinar, y'all do a really good job. Yeah. So I think definitely for next year, we probably will make more asks about y'all running webinars, because we've seen a lot of success about it. People find them useful, and don't fix what's not broken. So we definitely will probably have more invitations for y'all to lead training sessions as part of our ongoing work, not just around National Day, but just with brigade stuff in general.
Yeah, and you'll see like I have a slide at the end that talks about the things that people liked, and so many kudos to the four of you who led those webinars. So amazing work, amazing sharing skills. These percentages here, people who attended and didn't attend the webinar, it's pretty consistent. It usually looks the same. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe having you guys share more resources and lead more sessions will maybe increase that attendance. I don't know. I would hope so. Suggestions for improvements. Educational resources, Civic Hacking 101 resources. This is exactly the type of thing that is perfect for you all to share amongst each other. I think, people have different all the brigades have different orientation processes where they might have like an intro to civic hacking or an intro to civic tech. And I think all of you describe it in a different manner, and all of you decide to highlight different things based on what's important in your cities and based on just who your membership is and who your audience is. And I think that that's great. And so I think, like Civic Hacking 101 resources, that's something that's really, really, it would be really useful if we could see like 10 different ways of how people are doing this, and then people can use that and cater it to what would make sense for them. Someone suggested an event checklist and reminders during the planning process. So we actually have an event checklist, which I think it just tells me that, we haven't done as good of a job as putting our resources out there and making them visible. But we had our event planner and someone from Open Austin help us, Vicky from Open Austin, help us create this event checklist. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But I really liked the reminders during the planning process. I feel like that's something that I would really appreciate. So yeah, that's something that we definitely can think about. And I love that idea. Yeah, so, and then more structure around tracking projects the day of. This is, again, something that comes up pretty often. And we do have the project search page, and we do have the Civic Tech Issue Finder. But I think, people are wanting improvements on that, and there's definitely room for improvement and just more organization on knowing who is working on what exactly. And then the last one, plans and tips for helping projects move forward after the event. This is another thing, just like the Civic Hacking 101 resources, that I think is a perfect thing for you all to share amongst each other. I think, in one of the goals that people were excited about National Day this year, one of the things that came up that I had mentioned before was just the depth of the project and being able to walk away with really tangible things that people can work on even after National Day. So clearly some of you have already been really successful on this, and it would be so fantastic if you could share, your process and like share your narrative around how you set that up, and how you were able to have people work on things past National Day. We definitely think that's extremely important. And we really want to work on putting together those resources for you. Cool. So what did people like? There was a lot. People really liked the webinar that was led by the focus area leads. They said that it helped them sort of formulate groups beforehand and prepare for the day, which was great. There was a comment about wayfinding signs and how they were super helpful last minute, and I can like totally picture how that would be something that last minute you're like, oh God, I don't have it, and would just save you a lot of time and save you a lot of stress. So that's great. We'll be sure to keep those. The challenges were not daunting and perfect for new attendees, and they were actually fun. And this was really great for us to hear. We put a lot of work into curating them and making sure that the description was accessible and that, they were actually bite-sized tasks, because that's something that we had heard in the past. So really great to hear that they were actually useful to people and people actually had fun doing them. That's exactly what we want. And then so many thank yous to Open Austin and Akezia and Jesse. It's seriously endless thank yous. So thank you. And then again, like really helpful to see what other groups were doing. We want to continue to see what other groups are doing. Thanks for swag. And there was also a huge, huge, huge shout out to Becca, who went to Austin for National Day of Civic Hacking. Becca runs our fellowship program. So that was great. So this is Tucson. This year's challenges seem much more beginner friendly. Y'all did the heavy lifting of organizing manageable tasks for the day, and many of them didn't require code. It was great. So we're really happy to hear that. Okay, so let's talk about what did this year show us. Code for Trenton had some really interesting thoughts that are very in line with sort of what some of the conversations we've been having internally here at Code for America. But we've done so much work in computer literacy that it's the person-to-person work that means so much more than the hackathons. It's something that we've had these conversations before, even in like thinking about renaming National Day of Civic Hacking. But I think it's just very telling of like the level of engagement that people are striving for now that we have so many people who are interested in doing this work. How can we actually go deeper and leverage our skills and actually be able to engage with more residents in our cities than we have in the past? So as a technical group of people, we have to focus on efficiency of achievable outcomes, but I feel we should aim to address how to engage our fellow residents and carry that engagement through all of our planning for any event. And I mean, it ties back to, having a diverse group attend the day of, and then being able to maintain that engagement past the weekend. So again, what did this year show us? We've been talking about this a lot, especially on our team. We've reflected a lot on the challenges, just because, it took a lot of time and resources on our end to sort of curate those, and we're really happy with we're really happy with the outcomes of the challenges and what we ended up having on the website that day of. Participation was a little bit lower than we expected, but we're super happy that we had them available and people really appreciate having them. So that's something that we wanted to note. And then it gets kind of cheesy here, but like again, just like a reminder, National Day is just a reminder to us and to all of you that no matter where you are, people love to show up and people want to continue using their skills for good. I think it shows, it's just a reassurance to us of how unique this model is, this volunteer model and like engaging with government. People actually do want to use their skills for good. People actually do want to put in the hard work that it takes to build a community, to build an impactful community, and groups want to diversify. And these are not easy things to do. But the fact that we're all like pushing through and wanting to strive for this and constantly improve this, I think is just really telling of how amazing and how strong our group is. And we're really proud of all of y'all. All right, so next steps. Christopher talked a little bit about this already, especially in putting together a report for the White House and coordinating with them and having a conversation with them, not in January, but making sure that we're communicating with them over the summer and we're keeping this conversation going. So what will happen to National Day next year? We're not sure yet, but you should know that the conversations are happening now and they're not happening in February. Do you want to?
Sure. So National Day is so it's not just a Code for America event. We also have Second Muse and until like very recently NASA. And so and then given the Office of Science Technology Policy's involvement this year, we also definitely want to make sure that they're included in these conversations. Um, and really, we'd like to sorry, we'd like to expand the number of partners. And so there's a lot of conversations that need to happen. And then at the same time, we also need to make sure that we do this sort of in a sustainable way. National Day takes up a lot of staff time and a lot of resources, not only on sort of Code for America side, but certainly the brigade side as well. And so we need to think about ways that we can fund the effort um, so we can continue the program because it does take up a lot of resources. So we're having those conversations, and we'll definitely be looking at the surveys in terms of what we think about for last year. And then aside from that, if you have any thoughts besides the sort of what's in the survey, please feel free to reach out. Because we're so far out, it's pretty malleable at this point. And so if we do want to make a shift in sort of how we run National Day, sort of now is the time to have those conversations.
Totally. And I think like the thing that I really wanted to highlight here was like regardless of what ends up happening next year, the thing that's most important to us is to be able to play the role of facilitating the process of you all learning from each other. And regardless of whether there's 2 events next year, or like 5 events next year, or 6 events next year, or whatever the case may be, you guys still need to learn from each other, and you guys still want to learn from each other, and we want to be able to facilitate that. So, we want to improve and build more ways for you to share resources, so that you're building on each other's work and you're learning from each other's experiences. And that's, from the brigade team's perspective, that's what's most important to us. And we're still committed to doing that, of course. Great, that's it. So that was National Day of Civic Hacking. Sorry, I was just gonna. Yeah, we want to thank you again. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything that you want to follow up on or have a discussion on. Christopher and I are extremely accessible and we love to hear from you. We always love chatting with you. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. Like I said, this is going to be online on the forum. Feel free to I know like usually we don't use the forum in a discussion type way, but because this was recorded and you guys are not on this call with us right now, that'll probably be the best way for us to continue a conversation or continue a discussion, anything that's on your mind really. So please feel free to do so, or just reach out to us directly, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.